It's not the start of ACC play, but it's probably the biggest game on the ACC schedule to this point in the season. North Carolina going on the road to face Clemson at Little John Coliseum. That, of course, is Carter Elliott of Sleepers Media. I'm Brian Rauf of Heat Check CBB, here to break the game down. Carter, this probably lost a little bit of luster once Clemson lost to Miami this week, but still a lot on the line here when UNC goes on to face Clemson. Looking at this game, we'll start with the Clemson perspective. What needs to happen for the Tigers to win? Like, what does this mean? What's on the line for the Tigers?
To me, this is something that falls into like a classic kind of like trope I like to use with college basketball, is that it's hard to win on the road, even if you're a good basketball team. Like, I still think highly of Clemson. They ran into a buzzsaw offensively of that Miami team in that second half. And Coral Gables is a tough place to win. It's tough to win on the road in college basketball, no matter what. But to me, the sign of a really good team, or a team that people think highly of, is how they respond to that. And in my eyes, Clemson has a chance with a good North Carolina team, a team who I still believe actually wins the ACC this season. I'm still sticking with my North Carolina pick. I picked them preseason. If they're able to win at home against North Carolina, I think that would kind of maybe reaffirm some folks that maybe wavered on Clemson a little bit. I mean, me personally, I didn't, but I think it would send a message based on how they play in this game. And I'm not saying that's got to be a win or a loss, because North Carolina's a good team, but how they play and how they respond to what happened against Miami, I think will say a lot for Clemson going forward.
Yeah, this Clemson team is 2-2 in their last 4 games. The losses are to good teams, right? Mm-hmm. Miami and Memphis are certainly good teams, but teams that I think certainly Clemson fans would have thought they would have won. And I think it's fair to say that Clemson could have come out realistically 2-0 in those games, or at least 1-1, and were competitive, but I think looked like the worst team in both games, which was a little concerning with the backdrop of last year, where they got off to a really hard start. I think they were 15-4 or something like that, and they went 8-8 in their last 16 games. It was a big reason why they missed the NCAA tournament last year after that hot start. I think there is some lingeringness of, is that happening again to this year's team? Because you had the incredibly hot start, and PJ Hall is still playing at a really high level. Joe Girard's play has kind of fallen off. Chase Hunter's play has started to fall off. Chauncey Wiggins' play has been inconsistent. So you're looking at this Clemson team, and they were a surprise early on in the season. We thought they would be good, and they turned out to be playing really good. I'm starting to wonder if they can maintain that really good level. And I think North Carolina will provide a good test for that, because this is the conversation we've had about UNC the last 2 years, is the variance in their play and how up and down they've been. UNC, going back to, I think, the Bahamas and Atlantis when they lost to Villanova, they've been a pretty consistent team, playing at a pretty consistent level. We saw what they did against Tennessee. They lost to UConn and Kentucky, but played well in those games, handled the business against Pitt, handled the business against Oklahoma. Like, to me, UNC is now playing like a mature team who plays to a certain standard every game. Will be interesting to see if they take that on the road. They did against Pitt, but I do think playing at Clemson is a little bit of a different animal.
Yeah, and to me, for North Carolina, a lot of coaches and a lot of college basketball teams want to have this great non-conference like win-loss record, because it means so much when it comes to the tournament time. But when you take a step back, what it's really about is that you find out things about your team. You kind of round into form. You figure out who's going to be the guys going in the conference play. And that's like when you turn it up and you go all in, and you want to keep on, going at a trajectory where you're peaking once you get to March. So, North Carolina didn't necessarily, like you said, take any bad losses, had some good wins. But you're finding out, I think, about this team. And I think they're just, RJ Davis is playing at a high level. You're starting to get some contributions from guys like Seth Trimble, who I think has played pretty well over these past couple games, which is, I think, surprising to see. A lot of the talk was what Elliot Cadeau would be for this team, but you're just getting a lot out of different guys. And then you have the equalizer, or the ace spade card, which is you have RJ Davis and Armando Bacot on your side, which is I think really good for for this North Carolina team. And one thing I want to comment on with Clemson that you mentioned, I think needs to be spoken about, is that, you know, PJ Hall is going to be PJ Hall. PJ Hall is going to be a first team all ACC like level performer guy. You know, you're going to get that. Once you go outside of that, I'm not saying it's bad players. I'm saying it's players that haven't necessarily found a level of consistency. Like
Right.
Joe Girard, we know is going to struggle defensively, and also at Syracuse, he was able to fill it up, but he was also inconsistent. Like there was games where he poured in 20, couldn't miss, games where he couldn't hit the side of the backboard. Like that's just kind of who he was. So it's kind of like, do you want for these guys to find more consistency? Or a question I actually wanted to ask you, is it too much to ask for more from PJ Hall, to be honest with you? Because I think PJ Hall's been playing great, and it
Yeah.
feels bad saying it out loud. But I think for this Clemson team to be really, really dangerous, like he can't have 17 points. Like I need 23. I need 25 out of PJ Hall. And
Right.
he has that in his game. And they can win games when he doesn't score that, but that would demand consistency out of the other guys on the team.
This is the difference between really good players and great players, right? And guys who are able to be the best player on a good team and be the kind of guy who can carry a team, is going from that 17, 18 points to 25 points in big games like this. I don't know if PJ Hall has it in him, at least consistently. I think he can do that, but we haven't seen him be that superstar in big spots. We've seen him be a star and handle his business, carry his share of the load. Like that's part of what PJ Hall does, is his consistency carrying the load. But to your point, because of the inconsistencies of the guys around him, that has led to some of the inconsistencies of Clemson. We're at a point now with Clemson, if you're going to take that next step and legitimately be in the ACC title conversation throughout the course of the season, and not just the first part of the year or the first month of conference play, you're going to have games and times with the supporting cast that's around him where he's got to do more than his fair share and more than that extra scoring load. And he hasn't really done that consistently yet. Like the narrative around him was that he was somewhat of a secret superstar, but everyone in the AC knew who he was, but because he played for Clemson, he didn't get the respect nationally. And I do think there is some truth to that, but part of the reason for that is he hasn't been dominant in the big games. He has been very good, he's been productive, but he hasn't had a game where you had to notice how good he was. And you had to notice that Clemson was dominating this game. This is a chance for that, right? Armando Baycott's coming into town and you outplay him and you lead Clemson to a win over a good UNC team. Like that'll change that narrative. And this is a spot for him, spot for those other guys too, to prove their worth as role players and playing well. But it's also a spot for PJ Hall to say, I'm the best player in the ACC.
Right. Exactly. And he's staring at who people would probably pick as the best big in the ACC. Like that dude's staring him in his face. He's coming to your house. Like what are you really about? Like what are you going to do about it? And it, like I said, it feels unfair when I say it to be like I need more out of PJ Hall, but also at the same time it's fair because he has that ability. It's like classic coach speak. I'm not going to push the guy, ask more of the guy who I know what he is. That's just wasting my time. I'm going to shift my focus on the asking more of my great players who have the ability to dominate games, to dominate a basketball game. And I also think this doesn't always fall on PJ Hall though, because I had this theory too with Clemson that and I don't want to mispronounce his name. Is the center's name Shiflin?
Yep.
Shiflin. I like him. I like what he brings against certain front courts. But you saw in that Miami game, they spaced him out. It was Norchad, wings, guards. And I think he struggles in those games. He looks great when you're playing a front court like Bama, and he's just getting those guys in foul trouble and out toughing him. I think that Coach Bernal could do a lot of things, maybe as far as like PJ Hall at the 5 and make that work and then just go straight guards, wings. Now, are the guards and wings going to step up? I don't know. But I think it's another maybe wrinkle that could be thrown into this Clemson Tigers team.
He's another guy that's been, his level of play has dropped recently. Now he was playing out of his mind, putting up, they were calling him Clemson's Draymond Green because when he's doing defensively and rebounding and passing and all that stuff, and it was great. But he hasn't been the same kind of all-around impact recently. I think Clemson needs him to get back to that. So looking at this game, I'll ask you to make a prediction. Who wins and why?
Oh man, I can't. I literally logged on to this call for sure saying UNC. Talking through it, I wavered a little bit, but I'm gonna stay strong. I think that UNC I think they have the chops to go on the road at Clemson and get this win. And Clemson's not a tough place. I mean, it's not an easy place to win. It's always hard to play on the road, like I said earlier. But I just think that when you look outside of PJ Hall, I think guys are more so coming to what the players they actually are and not what they were at the start of the season. And that's not to say that Clemson's not a team that I don't think is gonna, completely fizzle out and not make the NCAA tournament. But I think it's time to just tamper expectations just a teeny bit. So yeah, I think I'll go UNC to come in there and get the win.
I think so too. I think it'll be a close game. I think you're going to see Clemson come out hot and have a big first half. But you mentioned Seth Trimble. I think his defense on Joe Girard and Chase Hunter, whoever Hubert decides to put him on, Coach Davis, is going to, I think, really disrupt one of them. And you're going to need PJ Hall to score 30 to win this game. And I don't know if he's going to do that. If I'm Clemson, winning this game would be nice. I don't think it'll happen. The next four: Virginia Tech, Boston College, Georgia Tech, Florida State. Those are four you have to win.
Right.
I'm not raising alarm bells for Clemson. They lose this game because I'm going to pick UNC as well in a close game. But we'll find out a lot about Clemson here in the next couple of weeks. But Saturday, I think we're expecting the Heels to go on the road and pick up the victory.
Yeah, it'll be a good game. It'll be a good game and a good win for my North Carolina ACC title favorites. They need to pick it up a little bit. I'm a little bit worried about how well Duke's been playing, but I'm still staying strong on my Tar Heels.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll break down this game and all the other big games around the country later this weekend on the Sleepers Media YouTube channel.